Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar from the South and East Network for Social Sciences. I am Fragkiskos Filippaios. I'm a professor of international business at the University of Essex and the director for the SENSS network. The main purpose of today's webinar is to provide you with some information on our collaborative projects competition and, of course, give you the opportunity to ask any questions. For that reason, we're going to be using the question and answer function. Please put into that questions as you have them as we go through the material. And what I will be doing is from time to time, I will be pausing and responding to those questions. The webinar is being recorded, so you will have access to the recording shortly after we finish with the webinar. We usually put them in the next day on our website and on our YouTube channel. I don't intend to kind of cover everything, but the main purpose is to basically give you a few hints and tips about what the collaborative competition is all about, how you can kind of shape your application to be successful, and just to give you a sense of the steps that are going to follow. So let me start first of all, and if you have any questions, as I said, put them in the question and answer box, and I'll be responding to them. The first thing is just to give you an overview of what SENSS is. We are the South and East Network for Social Sciences. We are a doctoral training partnership, as it's being called. We receive funding every year from the Economic and Social Research Council, which is one of the 7 research councils funded by UK Research and Innovation. And there are another 14 doctoral training partnerships like us. Some of them have a very similar competition, which involves a collaborative partner, but not all of them have a similar competition. Therefore, we consider ourselves, relatively pioneers in this area. So what we do is we receive funding every year, and through that funding, we're able to award studentships for doctoral researchers, but also postdoctoral fellows as well, from approximately 4 every year. The overall number of studentships that ESRC funds is about 500. Some of the doctoral training partnerships manage to increase that by providing match funding. So in our case, we give 25% match funding to every studentship, and therefore we can increase the number of studentships that we have been awarded. And in our case, we are a partnership across 8 institutions located in the south and east of England, with Essex being the coordinating institution, and then partners like University of East Anglia, Goldsmiths, City, Lincoln, Cranfield, Middlesex, and Roehampton. So some of the collaborative projects are located in those partners, and I'll talk about which ones host a collaborative project this year later on. Just to give you a sense of the cohort you will be joining, in the last 2 years, we were able to award roughly over 80. So I think if I'm correct, 84 studentships in 2023 and 2024. So the current cohort is about 84, and we are in the process of attracting and shifting through applications for our student-led and the collaborative-led competition, and we expect to be able to afford about 40 studentships this year as well. So the 8 projects that we have advertised are effectively part of that cohort of 80. They will be part of the cohort of the 40 students we will be awarding. What do we offer and what makes us unique? First of all, we consider ourselves very interdisciplinary, and that is a part of the ethos of the doctoral training partnership. You will see also the collaborative projects have an element of interdisciplinarity. At the same time, we offer advanced training. We have substantial training facilities, both at the University of Essex through the Essex Summer School, the UK Data Archive, but also in other institutions. We try to tailor those training offerings to your individual training needs, and that's part of the process for your recruitment. I'll talk a bit about the interview process later and how through that interview process we identify what are the needs of the students. We also have a significant online training offering, including exclusive access to SENSS Campus. It's almost like a mini degree, the offering of SENSS Campus there. And the main aim is to prepare you and support you for your PhD if you have specific gaps. Uh, Access to training to all 8 institutions. We have roughly over 200 external organizations that offer us placements, work placement opportunities, collaboration. And then, of course, through your PhD, you will have what we call uh, opportunities for overseas visits, where you can spend time in an institution abroad, disseminating your research, uh, perhaps developing your networks in partnership with your supervisors. There is funding for attending annual conferences and events. There is funding for academic publishing. We have our own journal, which is called the Sentio Journal, and that's being managed by the student committee. And all that is rounded up in a virtual learning environment that you will get access as soon as you become a SENSS student. So what we do is we don't look at the PhD as simply an academic qualification, but the main aim here, and actually one of the main aims of these collaborative studentships, is to prepare you for roles and work not only within the academia but also outside the academia. And we place particular emphasis on developing skills that will make you employable outside the academia, because the academic world is becoming more and more competitive and more challenging to secure jobs. And the plan here is to get you thinking about what are the roles and what skills do you need, and therefore what kind of training you need in order to fulfill those roles throughout your PhD. SENSS is being structured in what we call 6 thematic areas. I have them here. They're not in order of importance. They're equally important for us. We simply use those thematic areas to identify which are the grand challenges the projects you are doing fit into. So we've got one thematic area which deals with sustainability and climate emergency, looking at all aspects of sustainability. We have an area around health, well-being, and social care, justice institutions and social change, resolving uncertainty and addressing crisis, and digital social sciences, as well as advanced methods in social and economic research. The collaborative project you will be applying to fits one of those 6 areas, and except from being part of the wider cohort of the 120 students next year, you will also be part of a mini cohort of the thematic panel, and that will give you the opportunity to exchange views and ideas with other students, doctoral researchers in that particular thematic panel. And there are 2 major opportunities every year that you can exchange those views in person. We have an annual a student induction in October. This year's student induction is going to be hosted by City University, but we also have an annual summer conference where we bring together all researchers across all thematic panels, and we give them the opportunity, to present their work through several sessions, but also to engage into other training opportunities and exchange their views and ideas. I think the best way to give you a sense of the collaborative projects we support, and just to give you also an indication of the diversity of students and profiles of students that basically have applied and have been successful to those projects, is our website. And what I did is I picked up from our website the projects that we have so far funded from a collaborative perspective. So you will see there is a variety of institutions, there is a variety of teams, and there is a variety of projects. And in certain cases, like the case of Deborah and the case of Mazen, you could also visit the website and watch the student profile video. And I think I would encourage you to do that, because you will be motivated by, the passion that these students talk about their studies. So we have projects like Jonathan Cook one, which is around the use of evidence in civil service policymaking. We have projects that involve community, like the one that Deborah is doing at Cranfield, where it's a community-based co-design of small-scale wastewater systems. We've got projects that look towards the future of the potential of hydrogen towns. And then we've got projects like the project from Natasha Hill, which is around transforming tropical life wildfires. These are projects that, this is one of the projects that is effectively taking place with a substantial amount of field work abroad in the Amazon forests. We've got projects like the one that Emma is doing, where we're looking at external organizations which have a specific remit to develop policy. And in this case is about flood performance certification. Projects like the one that Saul is doing at Goldsmiths, which is more about creativity, curiosity, and arts in the school setting. So there is a very, very big diversity in the projects, and these were the ones that were the three last ones from the first cohort at Lincoln, City, and University of East Anglia. And these were the ones that we recruited successfully. These ones are the ones that we recruited successfully last year. So you will see there are three projects from health, well-being, and social care here, but very different topics. One is about improving identification and access to support for low mood in boys. The second is the Body Happy Schools program, an evaluation of that program. And the third one is mothers and the way they moderate impact on intimate partnered violence. This is again an international project taking place at the Dominican Republic, but obviously having significant implications for policy across the world. And then there are three more projects here on health, well-being, justice institutions, and health well-being. And you can see the variety again of projects. One is about learning from children and young people with complex needs. The second is about understanding the links between intra-household dynamics, individual and household debt. And then Alex, the one hosted at Goldsmiths, is an exploration of cultural narratives about a location of concern and their impact on suicidal ideation and behavior. It is actually with one of the biggest local councils, this project. There is a variety, again, of collaborative partners. And I'll conclude here, again, one very international project, the one that Dowdy is doing around sustainability and climate emergency, focusing on sharing knowledge for building climate resilience among farmers in sub-Saharan Africa, the one around gamifying the morning routine and the way of using gamified digital technology for helping autistic children. And then the last one is around factors contributing to emotional overeating in socioeconomic disadvantaged children. So you will see that the projects we're funding that all come with a collaborative partner focus on significant societal problems, focus on problems related to sustainability, focus on problems related to people behavior, trying to improve everyday lives like the one with gamification or the one with emotional overeating. But equally, we have projects which look at the grand kind of policy perspective, like the one that Jonathan is doing, where it is with the evaluation task force from the Cabinet Office. And this is, opportunities for us not only to inform policy, but also understand what the policy requires from us as academics when we produce research. So these projects have the interesting element of being co-designed with a collaborative partner, and therefore they will give you roots not only within academia, but also outside the academia. Equally, they will present themselves as a challenge to you, because you're not only going to be working with two established academic supervisors, but you will also be working with a collaborative partner supervisor. And actually, in the selection process, when we go, and I'll explain a bit about the selection process later on, in the selection process, what is actually happening is we have the two academic supervisors as well as a collaborative partner supervisor attending those interviews and making the decision on offering the doctoral studentship to a potential candidate. So the collaborative partner has a significant role to play, and it is also the organization that will be hosting the placement. So every PhD we're funding involves a 3 months placement, and in the 3 months they don't have to be in a single bunch. It could be 3 months across the 3 years, where you spend 1 week here, 1 week there, 1 week there with the collaborative partner. But we try to embed you within that collaborative partner so you can understand what is happening outside the academic box. With that in mind, I just want to say a few words about the projects that we have funded this year. And let me just briefly describe the process through which we select these projects, because I think that's also quite useful to bear in mind that these are not simply projects that have been put out there. Every year we launch our collaborative projects competition over the summer. We invite applications from supervisors based at SENSS institutions, and those supervisors use exactly the same system that you use to apply for this competition, the HI apply system. Last year we received just over 25 projects. There is a panel that evaluates those 25 projects, and depending on the funding we have, we can select how many we will be funding. So these are projects that have already been through some form of quality assurance process. We have checked that they're good projects for PhD students. We have checked that they are projects with solid and valid collaborative partners. So the first one is a project offered by the University of East Anglia, and it's in partnership with Cambridgeshire Community and Norfolk Community Health and Care NHS Trust and the Moore House School. Having an NHS Care Trust on the project as a collaborative partner gives you access to a lot of information. And the project is supervised by Professor Johnny Holmes and is about enhancing classroom identification and support for children's well-being. So what we will be using there is material from NHS trusts, access to the Moore House School for the classroom data, and that will allow the researcher to basically look at, what are the most appropriate ways of supporting children's well-being. The second one is a very interesting one for me because it comes into a theme around justice institutions. Social change is hosted by my home institution, University of Essex, and it is with working families, which is a third sector organization. We have a variety of third sector organizations that support our projects. It is with a very good colleague of mine from the Essex Business School, Dr. Ian Roper, and it looks at the changing landscape of workplace rights for women workers with caring responsibilities. So obviously, the amount of caring responsibilities people have changes. How does that influence workplace rights? There is very, very important policy implications coming out of this project. The third one is from East Anglia, again, justice institutions and social change. It's in partnership with a very established and reputable organization, the King's Trust International, and it's about youth trust and transformation, and it's focusing on the long-term impact of police-led support for net young people in Barbados, an international project. Again, you will see that every year we have at least 1 or 2 projects which are very international ones. This is one that's very international. It is actually, this project contains fieldwork in Barbados, and there is additional funding to do that, and it is also supported by the King's Trust through their connections there. Research Project 4 is supervised by Professor Victoria Baird in Sustainability and Climate in Emergency, again at my home institution, University of Essex, and it takes place, a substantial part of the project in Brazil, and the title of the project is Understanding the Impact of Place-Based Interventions to Mitigate Climate Change on the Mental Health and Well-Being of Young People in 2 deprived coastal communities in the UK and Brazil. It will give you the opportunity to look across in a cross-country perspective and look at ways that you can people can be supported in terms of the mental health and well-being in deprived coastal areas. The other 4 projects are, again, first one at the University of East Anglia by Birgit Larsson and the Feathers, Futures and Office of the Police and Crime Commission of Norfolk. Heat and violence against girls and women in the UK, potential impacts of climate change and critical analysis of adaptation. Again, a project focusing on health, well-being and social care. Project number 6 is again East Anglia with the Center for the Environment, Fisheries and Aquatic Science, Aquaculture Science. This is the second project we have been funding with this organization. It's supervised by Rosalind Bark, and the title is very catchy, if I may say so: From Catch to Kitchen, learning from recreational anglers to diversify UK seafood choices. And it's focusing directly on elements of sustainability and climate emergency. Fishery is an area where we need to be looking, overfishing and everything like that. So that project gives you the opportunity to look at, what are the alternatives that we can use to get people to diversify what they eat when it comes to marine ecology. Research Project 7, More Than Sleeps the Eye, the role of REM sleep and eye movement on the trajectory of distressing memories. It's at Health, Wellbeing and Social Care at the University of Essex. And here you have a partner, the Somnomedics, that will not only provide you with a supervisory capacity, but they will also give you the appropriate equipment to conduct the different experiments. And then, of course, the last but not least project is something that, it's at the hot spot at the moment, the impact of generative AI on gender pay gap in the creative media industries. It's supervised by Dr. Yue Lin in the Justice Institutions and Social Change at the University of Roehampton, and the partner is the Fawcett Society. So you will see there that there is a variety of projects that you can apply to. If you feel that there are 2 projects that might be of interest to you, the rule is that you can apply to as many projects as you like in this competition. So you can submit actually multiple applications. Obviously, you will need to tailor your application to each of those projects because, and I'll explain a bit more when I come to the application requirements and the evaluation criteria. You will need to effectively tailor the application to each of those projects, but you can, and I have seen it in the past, apply to as many projects as you like. Equally, you will be interviewed, you can be interviewed for as many projects as you like, and if you're interviewed for more than one project, we will then need to discuss which project, and if you are successful, we will then need to discuss for which project you will be taking the studentship and which is the team that you will be working with. And I've had at least one case in the past where there was one applicant that was successful in 2 projects. She was a very strong candidate, and therefore she was in the fortunate position of selecting which one they wanted to do. Right, let's talk a bit about practical things in terms of making an application. There are 3 stages to making an application here. First of all is discussing your potential application with the project supervisor. You can check your eligibility, and if you're eligible, you can apply to the university where the research project is based for a postgraduate place when required. Some universities require you to do the application for a PhD place before you apply for the collaborative project, but most universities right now require simply for you to apply for the collaborative project and then subsequently make an application for a PhD place. Complete the online application through HI Apply. All applications have to be submitted through our online system, and they have to be submitted by deadline. I'll come back to the deadline in a minute. And as you complete your application, note the criteria as your application will be judged on this, and tailor your application to each of the projects. I have seen cases in the past where people were simply copy and paste one application to the other, in applying for different projects. Obviously, there are elements where they will be common, but if, for example, there are different skills that are required from one application to the other, I think these are something that you need to take into consideration. As I said, and I need to stress that there is no limit on the number of supervisor-led studentship applications you make, provided that you are eligible for each of these. So you can apply to the ones that, for example, have a psychology element, more advanced if you come from that particular background. Some useful information. First of all, you don't need to have a master's degree to apply. We have had cases in the past, and actually one of them was last year, where students coming straight out of undergraduate degrees applied and have been successful. What usually happens is, as we interview you and when we decide to offer you the place, we discuss with you the structure and the length of the studentship that you need to successfully deliver the PhD project. And as part of your application, you're asked questions related to your previous training and experience, the training you will need during your studies. And then what we do is we can offer you that anything between 3.5 years, which is for someone that has a very strong research methods background, to 4.5 years for someone that comes straight from undergraduate with a relatively thin research methods background. So what we do is we prepare you for that transition to the PhD from your undergraduate. Equally, unless it is specified by the supervisor and the collaborative partner, all studentships are offered on a full-time or part-time basis. Obviously, if you do it on a part-time basis, your stipend and fees will be paid on a pro rata basis. So if you're doing it at 50% or 60%, you will be receiving 50 or 60 or 70 or 80% of the stipend. The minimum requirement for an ESRC studentship is to be spending at least 50%. So you can't go below 50% when it comes to a part-time base. So you can't spend 60% working somewhere else and 40% doing your PhD. And something which is really important, and the supervisor and ourselves will keep a very close eye on that, you need to complete and submit the PhD, not pass, but submit your PhD within your funded award period. So if you are awarded a plus 3.5, then you must submit your PhD by the end of the 3-year period. Now, if you fail to do that, from an individual point of view, it doesn't have implications. So you don't actually have to repay any money back or anything like that, but it has significant implications for the institution that is hosting the studentship, because any non-submission or any later submission than the funded period is actually being considered by the SRC as non-submission, and the institution receives a black spot on their profile. And should the institution fails to match, at least 70% of submissions within the funded period, the institution might be stopped from receiving funding over the next few years. So institutions do keep a very close eye on that. The most important information that you need to bear in mind is that the deadline for submitting your SENSS application is 12 o'clock, that's noon, Greenwich Mean Time on Monday, the 16th of February, 2026. I always stress the fact that it's Greenwich Mean Time, not your local time zone. So if you're living abroad, if you're applying from abroad, ensure that you keep that submission deadline and time stamped. It's 12 o'clock, it's noon GMT. It's not midnight, it's noon GMT. And therefore, you need to calculate when that deadline is if you're living and working in a different time zone. We don't accept applications past the deadline. We have been very strict over the years on that, and we do it on the basis of fairness. Of course, if there are technical issues, so for example, you have completed 100% of your application and suddenly you have a power failure where you are, and you fail to submit it, that's something that we can consider. But these are only very, very small cases, and we would expect you to have done everything but submitting the application, hit that final submit button. So if there is a difference deadline for applying to your chosen university for a PhD place, it's usually noted on the application. We try to make sure that this is minimized, and just make sure that if you are unsure, check with your supervisor or the operational lead at the chosen university. And then if you are shortlisted for a collaborative studentship, then the project supervisor will ask you to attend an interview. At the moment, we're looking at interviews starting the week commencing of the 2nd of March. So if you want to keep that in your diaries, that's the week that we will be holding most of the collaborative studentship interviews. Now, how do we assess your application? There are 3 main criteria. 2 of them take 40% and the last one takes 20%. The first one is the evidence of your fit, of your suitability for this research project, and that's 40%. So what you need to discuss there is why this project is important for you, how does it contribute to your academic or non-academic career, how does it, why are you motivated to pursue this project, and of course, think a bit about your existing studies and everything like that. That takes us to the second criterion, which is the preparedness and potential, including in collaborative context. So this is about your prior studies, but equally here, don't think only in academic terms. One of the key pieces of advice I give here is, for example, people might have done volunteering roles in their university years. They might have worked with external organizations. They might have had internships, placements in their undergraduate degrees. If you have worked outside the strict academic context, even if it's non-academic, even if it's lived experiences, that's something that we would like you to put into that part of the application, because it gives us a sense of the roundness of the development of the potential candidate. And then, of course, what we also ask you to do there is reflect on the 2 questions that you have addressed already, and tell us what kind of training needs do you think you'll have to develop this project. So, for example, someone comes with applies for a project that requires machine learning, but they haven't done machine learning in the past. They have done statistics, they have done econometrics, they have done that. We would expect you to identify that as one of your training needs. It's almost like the questions that you get asked during an interview: what's your major weakness? And obviously here, we don't simply ask you what's your major weakness, but also how do you expect to cover that major weakness? So you could look at, training offered in your host institution, in the institution that hosts the studentship. You could look at other training, and you could suggest ways. And also what we want you to reflect also on is the placement, and how do you see the placement working in your particular context and for your particular skills, and how do you see yourselves working with that collaborative partner. Again, one of the questions we ask during the interviews, and usually it's a question that is being asked by the collaborative partner, is we ask candidates, what's your knowledge about the collaborative partner? What do you know about the collaborative partner? And you will be surprised that there are cases where people come completely unprepared. People not have looked through the website or through the information of the collaborative partner. So that's something really important, because it gives you a sense of how you can design the relationship you will have with that collaborative partner. So here are the definitions. In the guidance we have on the website, so there is a very detailed document that we have on the website on the collaborative projects competition. That document provides you with the detailed criteria. It also gives you a sense of what is a good, what is a poor, what is a good, and what is an excellent kind of application, but also gives you very clear guidance in terms of what we expect you to cover in each of those boxes on the online application. And minor point here might sound very trivial, but it's worthwhile raising. Because it is an online system, my advice is always draft something in Word before you copy paste that onto the online application system. At least if the system fails, and it might fail because the system has a glitch, or it might fail because you have suddenly a power cut at home, at least you have the Word file there with all your notes and your draft response, and therefore you're not losing any work. Don't go straight onto the online application system and try to address the questions there. So here it's a very brief definition. So in terms of the suitability, we're looking at grounding in a substantially relevant discipline. We also look at your interests and experiences and how these are linked to the collaborative setting or the wider goals. When it comes to the preparedness, we look at evidence of achievement, progression, potential in studies to date, but also relevant experience within or extracurricular and interest in research beyond academia. So, someone with a very good degree who doesn't have any of that extracurricular experience might not perform as well as someone with a not so very good degree, but who has potentially several volunteering roles in their undergraduate studies. And then, of course, the last one, the evidence on your training needs, is looking at the collaborative partner and looking at how you can work with them. What are the methodological demands of the project and what are your training needs? And, we also want you to think about the placement, and we want to hear your views on how the placement should be structured and what you expect to get out of that placement. I think I've got a raised hand, and so that's a good point for me to pause here and allow the question. Labono, I've given you permission to ask your question if you want to come on mic.
Hey, I have a question that are there any fees needed to apply for collaborative studentship project?
No, the answer is very straightforward. There are no fees for any of our applications. We don't require you to pay anything. If anybody asks you for money throughout this process, it is a scam. There is no requirement for you to pay anything for the application. There is no requirement for you to pay anything actually for receiving the stipends and the fees. What might be a requirement if you are an international candidate is that you will need to pay your visa fees, which are not covered by the funding. Some universities have some form of hardship fund that you might access, but not all of them. So that's the only part of the money that you will have to pay. So it's what you would have to pay to secure a visa to come and work and study in the UK. Mihika.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. It is quite helpful. Sir, with that, I have a question where is there any university when we are applying for a university? Is there any application fees while filling up for university?
No, there are no application fees for the university. So none of the partners will ask you to have an application fee. And the way it's being done is because you apply for the collaborative project competition, we will only be asking the ones that are successful in the collaborative competition to apply for those universities. So we try to avoid wasting your time by making just a simply speculative application. And I think that comes to the questions that I have in the Q&A. Victoria is asking whether you need to write a research proposal to apply for this studentship. The answer is no. The research proposal has already been submitted and evaluated by the panel. And effectively, what you need to write is how you fit yourselves as an individual to that research proposal. So you don't need to write a separate research proposal. Bear in mind, the supervisory team during the interview, they might ask a question around how do you expect to influence the project? And we always try to provide space for the doctoral researcher to shape the project according to their interest, let's say, but the wider context is there. There is a second question from the anonymous attendee, an unusual question. There are no unusual questions. Is there an upper age limit? I hope to have many years ahead, but I'm at the start of a potential research career, having worked in industry and currently in education. The answer is no, there is no upper age limit to any of our studentships. There is no age limit, there is no gender limit, there is no education limit. We have had cases in the past where we even had people with no undergraduate degree coming on board and delivering one of those collaborative projects, actually, because they had substantial professional experience. Is it recommended to have a chat with the supervisory team? How if they didn't get to me after I reached out? It was in the past a requirement to have a chat with the supervisory team. You appreciate that some of the supervisory teams might be very busy and they might not have reached your email, or they might not ever reach your email. I think our top project at the moment is approximately has received already about 50 applications. So it might be quite challenging for the supervisors to reach out to every single student. So if you haven't had the opportunity to have a chat, I would still invite you to apply. And then, of course, eventually the supervisory team might come to you. The next question is about whether the IELTS is a requirement. The answer, it's not required for the SENSS application. It might be a requirement when you apply to the host institution for the PhD place. And usually a 6.5 or 7 IELTS is a requirement here. Janice is asking, what is the full coverage of the funding if the visa application is not being covered? Thank you. So the funding covers, in brief, 3 things. It covers the stipend. The stipend is anything between 20 and 22,000 pounds per year. That's to cover your living expenses. And the difference between the 20 and the 22 is depending whether the stipend is paid to a student that is in our London partners or outside of London. So the ones that study into one of the London universities get an additional 10%. The stipend, the funding is also covering a full fee waiver, irrespective of whether you are an international or a home student. The university will not ask you to pay any fees. And it also has an element of what we call the research training support grant, which is a mini grant, just under 4,000 pounds throughout your studies to cover for conferences, attending training, other training that you might need, everything like that. As I said, we don't cover visa costs, we don't cover the NHS surcharge. That's not because we can't, but it's because the ESRC does not allow us to cover those costs. I'll take the 2 more questions from people that they want to ask the question, then I'll talk about the next steps. Labono.
Okay, I'm talking from Bangladesh. So I have a question that is Bangladesh included your fund collaborative studentship project? Like I know that some of the countries are out of this service. So is Bangladesh included in your some of the countries where the students of Bangladesh can apply in your studentship project? And my next question is, I have a plan that I will take my IELTS exam in the next month. So can I apply for this collaborative studentship project right now?
The answer is with regards to nationality restrictions, there are no nationality restrictions. You can apply with any nationality across the world. So at the moment, we're not required to have any restrictions for nationalities. The second question is, yes, it's absolutely fine to apply without having your IELTS. It is going to be, if we get to offer you the PhD studentship, that might be a condition of the funding, that you take the IELTS, and it's not going to be a condition of the funding from ourselves. It's going to be a condition of offering you a PhD place from the university.
Thank you.
Mihika.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have two questions. One is that the research questions are basically more or less working in different country. Where I come from, India, I have my own experiences in India. So, say suppose if I'm applying for any of the topic which is the study or research project in UK. So, during the interview, would it be fine if I share my experience of Indian, and that can be implemented in say suppose in UK or some other region? So will that be applicable, that experiences? And second question is, sir, I have in my entire education I have done in English. So that will that be a waiver while applying for universities? Because sometimes university do consider if you have entirely studied in an assessment done in English. So that's another question. Thank you.
Yes. So the answer is you are allowed to bring in your individual experience, and you are allowed to perhaps also discuss with the supervisory team whether it might be a useful addition to the project. As I said, we do allow flexibility in those projects, and if we get a candidate who brings substantial professional experience, we might want to build on that. And as far as I understand, if formally your education is in English, then the university shouldn't be requiring you to undertake any IELTS. But that's something that you will be discussing with the host institution, which is the university, once your application is a successful one. Sandhya.
Hiya, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. So my question is that you mentioned the research proposal was already submitted by the university or for the particular project that they are doing. And so when we want to understand more about it so that we can present ourselves better in the application, is it possible for us to ask about it to the supervisor? In like an email or something like that? Is that okay?
The answer is it is possible to request, but the supervisors have been under very strict guidance not to share the actual research proposal with anyone, in the sense that we don't want to disadvantage particular candidates, because not everyone will have access to the full proposal. And you will only, and it might be that the supervisor might miss to send it to someone out. We have requested supervisors not to share their proposal with anyone else. And actually, we have had a case in the past where one of the candidates was a former employee of the collaborative partner, and they got access to that proposal, and therefore we had to apply extra scrutiny when it came to the interview to ensure that they were playing on a level playing field with everyone else.
Okay. So yeah, my basic understanding was to just know whether the application that we give through SENSS is assessed based on the proposal that they already have, or is it just based on the candidate's potential? So that is everything. But thank you so much.
You will see on the website, we have mini websites for each of those projects, which give you a sense of what is the project about, and also give you a sense of what are the desired and required qualifications that each of the supervisory teams is looking for in the application. So I would highly recommend to go and look at these micro websites we have on the website, on the SENSS website, for each of those projects.
Thank you.
Ibrahim.
Am I audible? Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to us. I just want to ask, actually, I tried to apply for the students competition led. Previously, they're just closed maybe last week, but I could not make it up because of my supervisor could not show interest immediately. So now that we have collaborative now, I want to know what's the modality to talk to talk to supervisor, to meet up with the supervisors, because we have a very short time. I think we have less than a month now for the collaborative competition to end. So I don't know how to the modality to meet the supervisors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the advice I would give there is the same advice as I give usually to the student-led competition. When you try to present yourselves to the supervisors in order to engage them and get them interested in your application, just say something which you would consider unique about yourselves and demonstrate very clearly your motivation and the interest you have in the project. I think every supervisor, because at the end of the day, they will be the ones that will be making the decision. Every supervisor would like to have the strongest candidates possible. So they could, if you make them, if you gauge them their interest to your application, that's the only way you can get them to talk to you and give you a bit more advanced information. Equally, if you fail to reach out to them, or if you can't reach out to them, or you can still here there is not a requirement for a supervisory statement to support your application. It's your application, and if your application is strong enough, it will be picked up from a supervisor, irrespective of whether you have talked to them or not.
All right. Thank you very much.
Janice.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, all. Good evening from here in the Philippines. I'd like to raise a follow-up question about the the assigning of the supervisors. Are they being assigned randomly after your proposal is being accepted, or being handpicked by us students?
For Janice, for this particular competition, which is the collaborative projects competition, you will be applying to specific projects, and that specific project has already supervisors allocated to it. So it's actually the supervisors that have submitted the application for the funding together with the collaborative partners. So there's no random allocation there. The supervisors are already there. The names of the supervisors and the supervisory team are on the website for each of the micro website of each projects. You will actually see in which institution, which are the supervisors, and how are they working, and you could go and visit their web pages. So there's nothing random in this process.
All right, thank you for the information. May I ask another question about
Yes.
The guidelines of the proposal? Is there any required format of the proposal? Thank you.
The information on what is required, even before you get to the point where you get online on the system, is all on the website. Under the collaborative projects competition, there is a long document which is called the guidance document, and that document tells you exactly what you need to do and what you expect you to fill in the different boxes of the application.
All right, thank you.
Which actually is also the answer on one of the anonymous questions. The guidance on SENSS did mention a research proposal in certain sections, such as resourcing, seems to need an interaction with the supervisor. So this is not a student-led application. The student-led application is already closed. Is the collaborative competition? Yes, we do require a research proposal for the student-led. We don't require a research proposal for this one. So please make sure that you check the right guidance document. Following up on funding, what about the airfare? No, I'm sorry. The airfare to get here for the first time is not covered. If your application and if the project requires an element of field work, so for example, like the project in Barbados, the airfares and the cost for that field work is actually covered through the project, but there's nothing covered until you get here to the UK and start your studentship. If you are oversubscribed, how many UK-based applicants will be prepared to consider for your projects? Thank you. There is nothing about oversubscription. What usually happens is the supervisory teams shortlist and shift through their applications without necessarily having nationality in mind. So it's not about whether you're a UK-based candidate or not. It's a matter of whether you are the best candidate for that project. The next question is, are we supposed to secure recommendation letters for the SENSS application? The answer is no, you don't need recommendation letters. We don't actually allow you to upload any documents on the website. The next question is, after writing the personal statement, the statement of interest for the SENSS portal, is there going to be a separate research proposal statement specifically to the UAA? And also, if I'm a post-study visa, which is valid for 2 years, am I eligible to apply? The answer, yes, you are eligible to apply if you're on a post-study visa. You will need to obviously apply then for a university visa, and UEA will be the sponsorship organization for that. And if you write the personal statement, the state of interest for the SENSS portal, then there is no need for a separate research proposal submitted to UEA. That's why we're doing the process this way, that we ask you to apply for the collaborative project competition, then the proposal will be almost what the supervisor gives you to work on. They've got two more questions. One is, the questions on research skills don't state a word minimum or maximum. How detailed should that be? There's always a character count. Check the guidance in terms of the character count for the requirements of each of those boxes that you need to fill. And is it sensible to book onto something like the Essex Summer School for Research Methods Gap ahead of the application, as I'd imagine is very popular? No, there is no need to book yourselves onto any training before you make your application. If we feel that there is going to be a requirement for you to attend the Essex Summer School, we will find ways of putting you on that Essex Summer School, even if they are oversubscribed. Will the individual universities require references? Some individual universities do require references, not all of them. But for the actual SENSS application, you don't require to submit any references. And regarding the character count, does this limit include spaces? As far as I remember, last time I checked the detailed guidance, yes, it does include spaces, but I think it does specify in the guidance whether it does requires it counts spaces or not. I'll take this one and then I'll move on to and then move on where we can access the recording. The recording will be available on the website of SENSS as well as on our YouTube channel. And on the website there will be a link with the recording where the registration link for this seminar was. Right, let's talk a bit about the next steps then. So the first step is obviously you submit the application. Remember the deadline, 12 o'clock noon, 16th of February. What usually then happens is we release those applications to the supervisory team and the collaborative partner, and we ask them to shortlist. Usually we ask them to shortlist up to 4 candidates for interviews, and we then organize those interviews, which are most of the time held virtually, to give the opportunity to international candidates to attend. From time to time, we have the odd hybrid version as well. And the interview panel is effectively the supervisory team and myself. And I sit on all interview panels for 2 reasons. A, because I then need to write a report to the management board to recommend you as successful candidates. B, because we need to ensure parity across all interviews and ensure that there are no kind of no breaches in our standards. So the interview panel will recommend the best candidate to the SENSS Management Board. As I said, interviews will usually take place in the first part of March. Then we write the report. The supervisory team will informally tell you whether they are recommending you to the management board, and then the management board meets in April. I think this year is around the 2nd of April to agree the awards, and from that point we issue offer letters to you that you can then use for your visas and everything like that. So by mid-April you will know whether you will be you have been awarded the SENSS Collaborative Studentship that starts in October 2026. Those are the key elements I needed to cover. There is one question there which says, I missed a point about the interviews. If selected for interviews, can an international student do the interview through Zoom? Yes, the interviews will usually be held in a remote way, in a virtual way. We usually use either Microsoft Teams or sometimes Zoom, depending on the supervisory team. As I said, the interviews usually take place in the first week of March, and therefore what you will receive is you will receive an invitation from the supervisory team once you have been successful or unsuccessful. If you're unsuccessful, you will receive an email saying, unfortunately, you're not successful. Sometimes the supervisory team does provide some guidance in terms of what is required. Sometimes, the guidance is just very brief, but we try to give as much feedback as we can to unsuccessful applications. I'll pause there for a minute, just in case there are any other questions you will read or you will need to ask. There is so for example, I'm looking through the guidance at the moment around the characters. There is a guidance in terms of the personal statement, which is 3,500 characters. And then, of course, once you submit your application, as I said, the week commencing on the 2nd of March is when interviews, you will be advised the week commencing on the 2nd of March, but the interviews will be between the 9th of March to the 16th of March. So that's the slot that we conduct all the interviews. And as I said, I will be sitting on all the panels, which means that we kind of spread them apart to avoid me having to do more than 2 interview sets every day. So, but you will hear from the supervisory team directly should you be successful in that. I think that's all from my side. I don't know whether there are any other questions or anything like that. The recording will be on the website soon after. As I said, usually it takes a day or two for the recording to be available on the website. Try to get in touch with the supervisory teams. If you have any other questions as you put together your application, you could always, if you have any technical issues, you could always use the admin email from SENSS. The administrator email ensures that someone will attend to your question, and if there is an academic related question, they will hand it over to me. If there is a non-academic and technical issue question, the team is always on hand to help. But if you have in between now and the 4th of February, any other questions, there is another webinar like this one taking place on the 4th of February, approximately the same time. You can join that one as well and put your questions there. I'll just, before I close, I will pick up a couple of questions that are there. Is there only one successful studentship for each of the studentship for each of the project? The answer is yes. There is only one successful. What usually happens is we have one successful and one reserve candidate. Sometimes the successful candidate declines for various reasons and we have to go to the reserve candidate. But usually we have one success and one reserve. We propose to the management board, and if the successful one doesn't want to take up the offer, sometimes people might have multiple submissions of applications to other funding councils, and therefore they might decide to pursue a different project. Sometimes they submit applications to the student-led as well as to this one, and they get the student-led, so they get to work on their own project, and they decline this one. So we always have a reserve one, but there's one person that undertakes the studentship. When applying for jobs, you're often not allowed to write in first person. For example, I'm good at. Is this the case for these applications? No, there's no preference here in terms of whether you write in the first person or third person. It's down to your writing style. That's my suggestion. I haven't seen in the past a specific pattern of applications being more successful because they're in third person or because they're in the first person. How many studentships are offered for each project? I said there is one. There are 8 in total of the collaborative projects. Marge, you say that the research methods training and skill section specifically. Let me pick this one up with my team, and I can get back to you if you send me through the chat, the private chat. If you allow me to send to host and panelists an email, a message, your email, if you put it there only for the host and panelists, I'll pick up the question you have there. It might be just a glitch in the system that allows the 100,000 characters, and I'll get back to you once I hear from the admin team, just to get them to check that as well. Labono, I'll take this final question and then we will conclude the webinar.
Thank you, sir. I'm married actually. Can I take my spouse along with me?
Sorry, that depends on your visa status. So I think, given that this is a postdoctoral, postgraduate research visa, my understanding is, it might be wrong, but my understanding is that yes, it does allow to take a partner with you. But this is something that you will need to discuss with your university, the host institution, once you are successful to the application. Mihika?
Sir, is there any personal, restrictions or anything that has to be committed for the duration of 3 to 3.5 years of PhD, the research project? Any commitment? I mean, we have to finish that, of course, but any personal commitment is required from the candidates?
What do you mean personal commitment? The only personal commitment you will have to is that you would need to be residing in the UK for the duration of your project.
Okay, that makes sense, right? Thank you.
Nothing else. There's nothing else. Right. If there are no more questions, then I'll bring this webinar to a close. I just want to wish you all the best with your applications and hope to see some of you during the interview process. Good luck, everyone.